Hi there, and welcome to vblogs.com, home for all of your online computer-based training and also computer-based articles. Our primary focus at our website is the actual focus of articles and CBT videos related to virtualization topics such as virtual server, virtual desktop, virtual applications. Anyway, let's get started with this specific CBT involved here. So the topic of this computer-based training video is for Citrix XenDesktop 5.5, more or less focusing on prerequisite steps that need to be in place before the ability to install Citrix XenDesktop 5.5. So, prerequisite infrastructure requirements. What are those? Well, really there's, what do we have here? 7 specific steps or specific areas of category that you really need to think about and make sure that you have in place before you can even consider really building out your Citrix environment. And we're going to be talking and focusing on the first 4 of these items within this specific video here today. So item number 1, what do you have to think about first, or what's a prerequisite? What do you have to have in place? First, we'll talk about the Active Directory environment and what's needed at the Active Directory level for you to be able to really start your Citrix installation. So Active Directory, what's required? Well, first thing that's not even really listed here is just to make sure that you have redundancy in your Active Directory environment. So best practice recommendation is 2 domain controllers per site to allow for high availability of your Active Directory infrastructure and environment. But once you have that in place, what's needed to be created? So you need to create security groups. The security groups will be used for authentication and access from your users to your virtual desktop environment. What's required? Well, you need a security group for your XenDesktop administrators. So the users that will be administering and managing your XenDesktop infrastructure will need to be added to this security group. You also need a security group for all of your XenDesktop users where they'll be placed. Another security group is then required for the different departmental groups. So if you have different departments accessing specific virtual desktop pools, you'll need to make sure that you have specific departmental groups for accessing your XenDesktop environment, so you can properly segment out your users based on the pool or virtual desktop pool that they need to access. So the second thing you need, organizational units. It's best practice to have at least one new organizational unit for your new virtual desktops that are going to be deployed in your XenDesktop environment. That's mainly for allowance of proper management, proper separation, and organization of your new virtual desktops for management. Another huge purpose or reason of needing an OU for your new virtual desktops placement is to allow them to receive their own and separate group policy within your Active Directory environment. Third item is service accounts. So best practice is to set up at least one service account for the Citrix XenDesktop environment. The use of this service account is to be able to access your new virtual desktop organizational unit within Active Directory, to automate the creation of computer accounts within your Active Directory. This service account also needs access to vCenter, because it's used as a service account for access from XenDesktop to your vCenter environment for automation between the two, building VMs, modifying VMs, deleting VMs, and things of that matter. The service account also needs access to the databases created within your Citrix environment. Details there, and we also touch on that later on. And also, if you're using provisioning services and you set up Windows shares with that, the service account also needs read-write access to that location. Moving on, second prerequisite step for your infrastructure is DNS services. It's recommended to have a DNS environment of server 2003 or greater. 2008 obviously is preferred. Newest, latest and greatest obviously is preferred, nice to have, but 2003 or newer will work just fine in your environment. Second DNS recommendation is to hopefully have Active Directory integration within your environment. If you don't, it'll work just fine, but it's just kind of a recommended setup for DNS within your environment. Obviously, as correlated or as directly related to next step here, redundancy with the domain controller. It's also recommended for your DNS servers to have 2 per site for high availability redundancy. In case one of your DNS servers go down, DNS services will not be down for your site. You'll have a failover server to be able to service your naming services needs. Also, a nice to have but not needed, good for troubleshooting, is to make sure you have a reverse lookup zone for your DNS services. And with that, another requirement or prerequisite for your infrastructure is dhcp. Again, server 2003 or greater is needed. 2008, latest and greatest, is nice to have. You obviously, within your dhcp, you will need a designated pool for your virtual desktop so that they can properly receive an IP address. Obviously, your virtual desktops will be using DHCP or dynamic IP address assignment. Static obviously won't be used. DHCP also, we have another video on this, and we're going into more detail, but it's a prerequisite step for provisioning services, especially as within provisioning services, your end user devices, whether it's a virtual desktop or a physical device, needs to do a network boot to receive its IP address and then to communicate with the provisioning services server to stream its virtual disk over the network. So that's a huge step, having that proper DHCP environment set up for provisioning services. Just from a high level, the scope options required for provisioning services and DHCP are scope options 66 and 67, so that the end user, so that the virtual desktop device knows where the provisioning services reside and how to boot to them. Final slide, going into infrastructure requirements and needs, is talking and discussing Microsoft SQL servers. So within your Citrix environment, with a full build, you will need 2 databases, one being your provisioning services database, the other being your delivery controller database. High level sizing, this is just very generic, very high level, but rule of thumb, 500 virtual desktops. Each database is going to need to be between 5 and 10 megs. 2,000 virtual desktops, the sizing will be between 15 and 20 megs, and 5,000 virtual desktops between 40 and 45 megs. Transaction logs, best rule of practice, 1 gig for 24-hour period. And below this goes over the needs for the security requirements required for your service account to be able to properly access, read and write to the database. So with that, thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Again, vblogs.com. Check us out. You're a great service and solution for online computer-based training. Really good articles also provided there. We're king in virtualization in relation to server, desktops, and applications. So check us out. Thanks a lot and have a great day.